What is the adult version of finding out that Santa Claus doesn't exist? Finding out that reaching retirement is about hitting a financial number and not reaching an age. You can do everything right and still fail. The reverse is true as well. Finding out that someone you have looked up to and admired your entire life is actually a horrible person. Sometimes there is no justice. Being a hard worker and good at your job doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be rewarded for it. $500 isn't a lot of money. When you buy an 8-piece Tupperware set, 4 of the pieces are lids. That's some friends were never really your friend. I thought I'd grow up, move out, find my footing in the grown-up world and basically switch into cruise mode. Now I'm in my 40s and shit is confusing as fuck. That working harder does not equal getting paid more or being promoted. When I was a kid, I thought adults had everything figured out and couldn't wait to grow up so I could be like them. Ha! One dumb mistake and it could all be over. For me, it was realizing the high school mindset in people never end see it in 60 years olds in Facebook now. That going to college and getting a 9-to-5 wasn't going to be the fun, creative, latte-filled experience rom-coms would have you believe. Realizing that no, we can't have McDonald's, 'cause there's food in the freezer. That time period when your relationship switches and your parent looks to you for answers and advice, instead them being the one with all the answers. Working full-time and being too drained to chase your actual dream. What's the weirdest thing you've done that you could only tell people anonymously? I downloaded Grindrbc. I thought maybe I was gay, but after a few dudes started messaging me I was like, this is gay as fuck, and deleted it. One time I went outside at like 2 a.m. and put the garden hose nozzle into my butthole and sprayed some water into it, then I farted it out onto the lawn. Basically gave myself an enema with a garden hose. I did this because I was bored. My neighbor saw me and told my dad, lived at home at the time. Once I got off the subway in NYC and I was super early for an appointment. So I picked a random guy and just followed him on foot for like 30 minutes, pretending I was like a private detective or something. Always kept about a half block behind. He turned this way and that, and eventually went into a building I had lived in 9 years earlier. It was weird, and so was I. I jerked off to some sexy sounds, which I thought was my neighbor banging some hot chick, which headed a lot. But it was actually another neighbor severely disabled adult daughter, very low-functioning autistic I think, who was making the noises. She used to hang out in their backyard and would verbalize with grunts and moans that I misinterpreted as sexy moans. I was extremely socially isolated as a child and tried to make friends with the coyotes who lived in the woods by our home. I caught one in a snare and FED and kept her. I wanted a friend. My wife and her best friend picked me up from a frat party blackout drunk. Then they helped me take a sheet on the toilet, wiped my ass and then gave me a shower and put me to bed naked. Don't remember any of it. All throughout middle school, there was someone who tucked unwrapped Hostess devil dogs into the toilet paper dispensers in the bathrooms, so that when you pulled some toilet paper out, the devil dog would fall out into your hand. We had to have an assembly about it. That person was me. I found a dead rat in a field when I was younger and kissed it. I wanted to say goodbye. My cat has trained me to give her rides around the house by jumping on my shoulder. I walk her over to the peephole of the door. She looks at it really. There's a dangling elephant thing with a bell that my wife has a decoration. She looks at and or sniffs it. I walk her to the back door to take a look for a minute. It's glass. Then I drop her off at her cat scratching post and she jumps off. She purrs like a freak the entire time. It's adorable. We do this several times a day. Gathered apple seeds 'cause I heard they had cyanide in them back when I was trying to find ways to self-isolate. I helped my partner get unimpacted after a surgery. I'm not sure I would ever be successful in the medical field. Raw dogged in a church. We were volunteers for mass, and locked eyes with the Jesus statue mid-nut. Had sex with a potential girlfriend's mom while the prospect was passed out after a house party. I was drunk, she was drunk, mom was drunk, her dad was not in the picture. Edit. To answer questions, yes, we dated afterwards, even got engaged for a while until I decided it was time to slow down the drinking and partying. Broke my heart to break it off with her, but I needed to grow up and get off the booze. She passed away maybe a year afterwards. Her and her new boyfriend died in a single car crash on a back road. Drinking was involved. I will never let what happened between her mom and I that one night, out of respect to her memory. I still miss you, Val. I was drunk once, a long time ago when I was so young, peed standing over the toilet and showed it my crush saying, hey, I can do it too. We dated for 2 years after that. I had a baby by C-section and didn't take the stools of tenors. Found out the hard way that I should have. I once had sex with a salad. No, this is not a joke. I was a very horny and confused preteen. If you were challenged to consume 20,000 calories in a single day, you will earn $1 billion. How can you achieve this? I would go to Cheesecake Factory and have a normal dinner with a dessert. Correct answer here is chug a bottle of olive oil and shit yours 5-year-old female minutes after they hand you the money. Milkshakes. Definitely milkshakes. I remember once eating a survival ration made to be as calorie-dense as possible. It had the texture of greasy sugar and tasted kind of like a cinnamon graham cracker. While they were heavy in the stomach, by sheer volume I'm sure I could eat 20,000 calories of them in one day. The Cheesecake Factory is their white chocolate raspberry truffle, with 1,930 calories per slice, so 10 slices of this plus a Big Mac. What's something you know is real, proven, but still can't wrap your head around it? How vinyl records work. Not only do they work, but somehow, someone figured out how to do it. What do you mean you press some squiggles into plastic and now it makes music when you run a needle across it? Makes absolutely no sense. The vastness of space. That we are closer to when Tyrannosaurus rex lived than he is to Stegosaurus. The concept of millions upon millions of years is just unfathomable to me. Bluetooth. You're telling me we start out with rocks and shit and somehow I hear music from my phone on my headphones without them being connected? The thinness of the Earth's crust and atmosphere. That we are so relatively close to plunging into a free hell of molten rock or being sucked into the vacuum of space. The number of people in the world. You're telling me there's almost 8 billion people? And they all have their own lives, names, birthdays, friends, feelings, language, looks, inside jokes, problems, victories, challenges, etc.? I have a hard time with realizing the person I see walking on the street has a life just as complex as mine, if not more so now, times that by 8 billion. Edit. Not in like a self-centered I'm the main character way, in like a my life is so complex how can this happen 8 billion times type of way. And TBH, my life isn't even that complex. It's just crazy to think how many people there are. Edit 2. Apparently this is called Sonder. Thank you for telling me, smiley face. It's cool to learn new things. For me, it's gotta be time dilation caused by traveling at fractions of light speed or gravity. That the tides are due to the moon. What's the wildest cheating story you've witnessed or happened to you? I knew a guy years ago that was a private investigator. Many times he was approached by a spouse who suspected their partner was cheating. He had a slam dunk strategy. He would suggest his client sign up for a course, whether a hobby thing or educational. The key was that the class would happen for a period of weeks, all on the same day of the week, and all at the same time of day. Then, while his client was in class, he would follow the spouse. Caught them every time. My friend's mom was in a relationship with a guy for years and they ended up getting engaged and duetto married. The guy was a senior director of a company for which he traveled every week abroad for business. Eventually, the guy had a heart attack, and when my friend's mom turned up at the hospital, his wife and 2 kids were there also. Turned out he was already married with children and living a double life the whole time. When he went abroad for business, he was simply going back to his actual family. A friend caught her husband cheating because he kept coming home smelling like ferrets. Hard to play off, long day at work, and explain that, when she found out at a holiday party that one of the young female coworkers owned ferrets, it all made sense. My ex-wife pretended to be admitted to a mental health ward for long-term treatment while actually staying with her new man and cheating on me. A family friend's husband was having an affair for 20+ years and that woman knew the entire time about this family. He was at her ranch one time and wasbucked off a horse and broke his back. The affair partner called his wife to tell her and acted like everything about this situation was normal and the wife had no reason to act all upset at the affair. Some people really just have no shame. Guy lived and made a complete recovery, left his mistress and they stayed together since they were working on their relationship. He died a few years ago and the wife finds out he never actually left this mistress, just lied. I know a guy whose wife was cheating with his cousin, also married. He finds out and decides to hobby everyone over for a supper. Halfway through supper, he looks his wife dead in the eyes and says, "I know you two are fucking," right in front of affair partner and his wife too. Shit blew up and everyone got divorced. Affair partners never got together either. I was 32. She was cheating on me with her ex for like 6 months before I found out. The way I found out was she called me crying hysterically saying she killed him by accidentally running him over. I get all her belongings from the police and find all the evidence on her laptop with them screwing. An argument over me was what caused the running over. Police ruled it accidental and she brags about it in bars to this day. She also ended up having a kid with a guy that had the same name as me and spells it exactly the same too. Edit. The way she ran him over was interesting too, purposely at first, but he was alive under the tire, and she had a sudden change of heart. She jacked the car up using the car jack, but it slipped as she was attempting to pull him out. It was raining, and the car tire then crushed his rib cage and lungs, finishing him off. So technically, he got ran over twice in the same night. My ex-wife missed our last dance at our wedding reception because she was fucking her cousins in the bridesmaids' change room. My dad cheated on my mom with a coworker. She suspected him of an affair but didn't know for sure until he didn't come home one night. I remember walking in the kitchen the next morning and asking my mom where he was. I was only 10 to 11 years old BTW, and she goes, "He didn't come home last night." So she called him at work and he said he slept at a friend's BC. He had too much to drink. My mom called the friend's wife. She confirmed my dad was not there at all, and that's all my mom needed to know. It destroyed our family. My mom packed his shit and left it by the door. She got addicted to prescription pills afterwards and tried to kill herself. She only lived BCI found her and called 911. After that she just left, took off, dumped me and my sister with my dad who will ill-equipped to raise two almost teenagers. So he met this super bitch who was recently widowed, they got engaged, and before I knew it I was living with her and I had 6 stepbrothers and sisters. Things only got worse from there. I enlisted to get away from ITOL. Whole thing fucked me and my sister up pretty bad. A guy cheated on me because my libido was too high. Yes, you read that right. You wanted sex so much that I needed a break by having more sex to get away from all the sex we were having. A friend of a friend found out that her husband was cheating when she got to the hospital to see her husband who had just moments before been brought in the ambulance after a serious car accident. Only Toby denied entry to his room because his wife was already in the room with him. He had 2 simultaneous lives with 2 women, neither of which was aware of the other. What have you always done, but later found out was gross? Looks like the better question would have been, how often do you change your bed sheets? All my life I wiped my toothbrush on the hand towel to dry it up until my sister asked what the fuck I was doing. As a child I would dig up bits of clay from the local sandbox. It wasn't as good as Play-Doh, so I would cast it aside and continue digging. Maybe I didn't have a very good sense of smell at that age, because I was well into adulthood before I realized it was probably cat shit. I flushed my tampons my whole life until I was about 30. No one had taught me they weren't flushable. I stupidly thought they were like toilet paper. One expensive and embarrassing plumbing problem order. I never did it again. Not washing newly purchased clothing items. Not washing behind ears. I didn't use to close the lid on the toilet before flushing. Oh, the sharticles. I love to eat the crispy, crunchy white yucca flowers from my yard. I ate them for years before discovering there are little white waxy worms that live in the flowers and blend in. I eat other bugs and worms and stuff, but not raw, so I started to wash them out of the flowers before I ate them. I learned the flowers are nowhere near as nutty and crunchy and delicious without the worms, so now I leave them in. Not brushing my teeth when I wake up. I would only brush my teeth after breakfast, and I would rarely at breakfast. So most days I would only brush my teeth at night. I figured, well, I brushed last night and haven't eaten anything since, so why should I brush again? Then I learned about all the bacteria that feed on the tiny bits of food left in your teeth, and they literally expel gas and feces in your mouth as they consume it. And this is what causes awful morning breath. So I have this mental image of bacteria poop and farts coating my mouth and have brushed every morning since, regardless of feeding breakfast or not. When I was like 5 or 6 years old, I would love going to the grocery store with my mom because the vegetable and fruit and meat tables always had the best ice to chew on. I used to take shits, would wipe for a bit, but if it was taking too long I would just stuff a wad OFTP in my butt crack and deal with it later. Edit. Running late this morning, might have to wad it up today. Chewing on fingernails. Haven't done it in decades but once upon a time. I use my earring to scrape out the muck from under my nails, then put the earring back in my ear. As an Asian, I was always taught growing up to throw used toilet paper in the trash bin. It wasn't until he went on a school trip to Italy the chaperone mentioned to everyone, the plumbing system here isn't as good as the USA, so you guys are just gonna have to throw it in the trash bin, and everyone went, ew, and that's when I learned that it was gross to throw toilet paper in the trash bin since the issue was you're basically having shit bit sitting around in a bin.